Well, once again, it's that holiday time, so I thought I'd do this whole thing in rhyme. And now, as we slip into holiday glory, let's check out the timeline of A Christmas Story. I started doing this one and, man, there's more movies than I thought about the old Parker clan. So let's dive right in and see what this is all about. Will it make me happy or shoot its eyes out? This saga begins back in '83 with a film entitled A Christmas Story. As everyone looks at the holiday toys, we're introduced to our cast of young boys. There's little Ralphie, our head little fellow, with his glasses a la Elvis Costello. He dreams of a BB gun toy pea shooter, and did you know that this guy was an Iron Man producer? We meet Randy, who is his younger brother, and then we get a clue from this magazine cover. It's from 1937, so we're at least past that, and then we meet his dad, and it's freaking Kolchak. His mom is looking for a close encounter, but look up here, it's a calendar. The days of the week match with 1939, and that's how the days of December fell at that time. Ralphie wants that gun with no doubt, but his mom says,
"No, shoot your eye out."
He's got two friends and one has the toy, and the other was in Matilda as Roy. They triple dog dare Flick to stick his tongue to this pole here, but he'd return the favor much later in his porn career. There's a local bully who scares the guys, and it's Scut Farkus with his yellow eyes. His dad wins a prize that's very fragile, and it's a leg, and check out Ralphie's play. Dude goes straight up to grope the cheek, and it's a lamp, and they make sure to give the neighbors a peek. And now here's where things get confusing, because take a look at the decoder ring that he's using. On it, it says it's from 1940, which goes against that calendar's story. But since it's December, it's possible that ring is new, and it's the one that they'll be using the next year through. The bullies push too far and knock off his glasses, so Ralph hauls off and kicks both their whiny asses. There's Wizard of Oz characters in a parade line, and that came out in '39, so that's the right time. Mickey Mouse is here too, and he looks kinda cool, instead of how he looked in '39, pure nightmare fuel. Ralphie meets Santa, and it's kinda scary and dark, but what the hell did you expect from freaking Bob Clark? The guy made Black Christmas, so maybe be glad that Santa didn't cover his face with a plastic bag. Finally, Christmas morning arrives with gifts under the tree, and boys open their presents with lots of glee. He gets a bunny suit that he's ashamed to wear, but send me one of these, I'll wear it, I don't care. And then just when he thinks the presents are done, there's one last gift, that BB gun. But when the neighbor's dogs eat the dinner, he stresses and goes out to yell, "Papa says!" So they go out and grab some Chinese food, something my family and Jewish friends can certainly relate to. Their Christmas ends, and so does the narrator's musings, except what comes next is really confusing. The first shot of the sequel came 11 years on in '94, not 3. With Bob Clark returning to It Runs in the Family. Gene Shepard returns to narrate his tale with laughter, and now he tells us it's the summer after. So I suppose that we'd be set in 1940, 6 months farther, and Beethoven's owner is now Ralphie's father. His mom is recast as Doc Brown's date, while Ralphie himself is now Scott Pilgrim's roommate. Flick and Schwartz are here, also new hirings, and they have a dog now, which I guess they got in the spring. Ralphie is actually yet another from the Culkin Club, and there's a new bully, and it's the dream child Jacob? Scut Farkus is here, now the Shermanator, and Miss Shields returns as their prime educator. It's the same actress, now 10 years plus age, and she's the only original cast member and still looks about the same. We finally meet the hillbillies next door, who kinda look out of place in suburbia for sure. So I said that this was called It Runs in the Family, but the title was changed to My Summer Story. It had the first title in the theatrical shows, but had the new name when it came out on video. Otho appears as a local theater owner, but there's something there that's a bit of a boner. This sign says Thursday is the 17th of August, but that date is just a bit of a bust. That's how the day fell in 1939, which we know this is not because we're past that time. So I guess that it's different here, so I don't get too sad, but let's just say that the narrator's memory is bad. And as for little errors, well, this is kind of fun. This guy says this helmet's from World War I. If this is 40 or even 41, then World War II hadn't yet begun. Well, I mean, it had, but we hadn't gone farther, and the name came into play after Pearl Harbor. There's another little goof that's a bit more extreme, and it happens in this crazy theater scene. Doppler here is attacked and yells out in terror and says, "Rosebud," and that's a bit of an error. Again, this takes place in 40's Summer of Fun, but Citizen Kane came out in 1941. Then he says, "Top of the world, Ma," which is a big boo-boo line because White Heat, which he's quoting, was 1949. Everything wraps up with a nice little bow, but its box office was just a little higher than zero. But I guess it was felt there was another tale to tell, so fast forward now to the year 2012. Making belated sequels is just now what you do, so the Flintstones director made A Christmas Story 2. We're back at the house, and the narrator says, "A few winters have passed, and it's years after the leg." Randy is here, and a teenage Ralph is all set. Of course, this is Mom, and Dad's a bandit who's wet. He still hangs with Schwartz and Flick, and they talk about a movie that came out in 46. So that may be our year, and Ralphie's 15, they say, but he was 9 in the first, so that just might sway the placement that we had for that one, and fine, because 6 years ago was 1940, not 39. So I guess that calendar was just slightly wrong, and that coin is our true hint where it belongs. But then there's a theater with It's a Wonderful Life, which came out in 47, so that's not quite right. He's in love with Polly Cooper from his class, and his dad checks out Cars, and another slight gaffe. He gets shown what they say is an Olds 88, which came out in 49, about 3 years too late. There's another weird thing here as Ralphie finds this old car that he says is from 39? For something that's 6 years old, it sure looks all beat. Kinda weird that he treats it like it's an antique. The boys get a job at the department store, where we finally get what I asked Santa for. A genuine date on this invoice here. It spells out 1946, perfectly clear. So it would appear as if that's when this is set, making the first in 40, I guess, whatever, you bet. There's a reference to fishing that might seem to suggest that My Summer Story is in continuity, I guess. Calling it part 2 would seem to imply that this is a retcon and it's passing it by, but there's no reason to think that it didn't still occur. There's not much to contradict it for sure. Santa's back and he's still a dick, and Ralphie wears another silly outfit. This invoice confirms the 46th year, and oh boy, the old leg lamp reappears. Our guy gets his car, and also the girl, but the movie bombed and disappeared in a whirl. 10 years later, well, last month to be precise, came A Christmas Story Christmas, a tale now told twice. Or 3 times, or 4, who's keeping count, right? And there's a calendar for 1973, which is pretty tight. Ralphie's all grown up now, and Billingsley's back, and he's got 2 kids, and his wife's Dr. Lola Spratt. He's a writer in Chi-Town and not doing that great, and he gets the word that his old man passed away. So they head back to Ralphie's hometown, and his mom's been recast like an airplane going down. There's a magazine confirming 73 for sure, and the Bumpuses are still here and still live next door. And hey, Schwartz is back, again played by Rob, and Flick is back too, tending bar as a job. There's a quick callback to the bunny suit, and Randy's back too, a big hunter dude. They go visit Santa and it's all the same, although the big guy's nicer and the elves aren't as lame. There's a dare to make up for the tongue on the pole, and Ralphie starts writing Dad's obituary with soul. Then Zach Ward shows up and Scut Farkus is back, and he's a cop now and he gives Ralphie some flack. But he also says it's been 33 years since their fight, so yeah, I guess 1940 for the first film is right. He does Ralphie a favor, so Scut turned out good, and they find gifts from the old man to brighten the mood. The obit gets published as a full-scale story to the paper, and an editor calls to make a book of it later. Randy finally shows and they get Christmas booty, and Ralphie's story is revealed to be the first movie. But wait, hold on, before you disappear, take a quick look at this credit right here. But that's not all, you'll be surprised to know. There's 4 more movies all a part of the show. There were 2 TV movies before the first flick, the first of them dating back to 1976. It's called The Phantom of the Open Hearth, and it's where the saga got its start. It's set somewhere in the 1950s age with the very first Ralphie, except for on the page. It has the story of the leg lamp prize, shown here a decade earlier than the film version's time. It also has Gene Shepard as the film's writer and narrator, seen for the first time as Ralphie, only much later. 6 years later, in '82, the PBS Masters made the Great American 4th of July and Other Disasters. It had returning cast with his mom and his old man, but Ralphie is now played by Mr. Matt Dillon. Although this is set before The Phantom, Ralphie looks like he's older, but it's not that dumb. It's set in the late 40s or early 50s or so like a few years after A Christmas Story 2 would show. 2 years later, after Christmas Story in '85, again on TV, there was also the star-crossed romance of Josephine Kosnowski. It took place in the same time frame as the last, but proves itself to be its own timeline quite fast. It tells of the Bumpus clan just moving next door, although they're there in the movie a decade before. This one's set at Thanksgiving for a holiday, you bet, because I guess that's mandatory for this movie set. 1988 gave the TV movies a goodbye kiss with Ollie Hoopnoodle's Haven of Bliss. No cast from the earlier ones would reappear, and the old man is Doogie Howser's dad here. Ralphie's 14 and he's now Fat Kid, but this has the same problems that the other ones did. It's supposed to be the 1950s again, but his age doesn't match, so they don't know quite when, or even if this all should match the other entries, but they don't really have to since they're their own movies. There was also a live show from 2017 that ran exclusively on the small screen. It was adapted from a musical version of the show and was generally considered to kinda blow. But it had Ferris Bueller as the adult Ralphie here, which is interesting considering his dad would appear. In the TV movies as Ralphie's dad twice, in terms of symmetry, that's kinda nice. So there you have it, that's over and done. And I enjoyed these, they're mostly all fun. I could do without A Christmas Story 2, but I enjoyed the rest, so I'll ask, do you? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Do you love them or hate them? Let me know. And of course, hit the like button, it's right down there, and maybe subscribe, and then you should share. You could also support me if you have a spare dime, and go to patreon.com/movietimelines, like these people here who are all pretty great, and keep tuning in. There'll be another video before too late.